experience. I'm watching for those disc read-write errors, but nothing so far.
Ronald, can we bust this out?
Yes, absolutely. Please.
I'm trying to munch, man.
Snack number 2.
Please do
Yeah,
it.
dude. Snack 2 for part 2.
For part 2.
I am very hungry still.
I'm pretty sure those smoke mussels will help quite a bit.
If there's one thing that can help,
Smoke mussels.
mussels. Always on the top of my list.
Yeah. Go for it.
These are phenomenal.
Man, look.
I'll give you some money for these, because if you want me to pay you, 'cause I'm about to eat like 4 of them.
That's fine, man.
Because
These are the ones from up there at Belvedere?
crap.
Yeah.
These are phenomenal.
My friend Dorian's shop.
Holy fuck.
It's so weird that we went to elementary school together, and I just kind of like went into Belvedere Square one day, and I'm like, "Hey," he's like, "Hey, you work here?" He's
What
like,
else
"I
do
own this place."
Damn.
If anybody's listening that's local, we're talking about the smokery. I guess that's what you would call it.
Neopol Smokery.
Yes,
Neopol?
Neopol Smokery
Damn.
over at Belvedere Square. Tasty stuff.
You need to try to get us like sponsored by this.
I know, man. We might have to do
If
that.
he can provide
We have to do
food
that.
for the recording process,
Tell him we'll talk about whatever his favorite movie is.
Right. We might have to do that, man.
it's also our favorite movie now too.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys like
We
these.
do have a lot of listeners in Baltimore,
Right.
so if you are,
Go into
Neopol
Neopol
from
and
this place.
say, I heard about you guys on this movie podcast called Movie Schmovie.
and that will develop
That's it.
Yeah. And then what we need to do is go in and be wearing a T-shirt or mention, hey, when you guys want to go record a Movie Schmovie right now? And then he'll be like,
Oh, hey, you guys!
I heard about you
I went to
guys.
school with Ronald.
yeah.
I'm gonna give you unlimited smoke mussels forever.
Oh well,
Yeah.
we're here. Part
Hello.
2, movie
Yeah.
schmovie,
Part 2 of Movie Schmovie,
ultimate ketchup.
the ultimate ketchup.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not the green or purple ketchup.
No.
The ultimate.
Once put out. Now that we're feeling nostalgic for random jingles and things of our youth. Did you always feel like that green or purple ketchup had like a grittiness to it? It had like
did.
a weird like
It
grain
did.
to it.
Is that the cost of a color? This graininess?
We'll give you the purple ketchup you've always never wanted.
But it'll be very
good. We're gonna drop a little sand in it. We want to get
gonna be
those teeth
sand.
clean as you're chewing.
Yeah, that shit was
a
that
little,
good.
little bit of a polish,
Was that
if you'll
good?
say. But yeah, so welcome back, Movie Schmovie Part 2,
Yes.
episode 219.
19.
Damn.
Sheesh.
219.
That's really cool.
We're coming up on 220 then.
That's
If
what
my numbers are right.
You are one that always is right with the numbers.
I add
are.
1-to-1 more effectively than most people, I think. Like the other day, someone said, you want one more of those? And I was getting 2. It happened to be donuts. They had like a deal. And I said, oh, you mean 3 donuts? And they were like, that's right.
Damn.
I said, why do you want to sell me one more? And they said, we just want to sell more donuts. I said, there's not a deal. This example's getting out of hand.
And you're like, I still got 3 donuts.
Yeah, I got 3 donuts.
He's like, actually, I got 4.
Yes.
They did it to me again, and I just did the math, and I was like,
How
yeah.
about one more then? You seem like a donut fan. Is there a deal? Is there a break at 4? And they said, no, keep going.
Keep going.
And the thing is, they got me up to about 6 or 7 before I realized there was no break.
But
You know there's a break when you buy a dozen. That's it. You got to buy 12 of those things.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
that's a lot.
That's too much. That's too much to eat yourself.
You need a function or some people that
Yeah.
you throw 12 donuts
Yeah.
out at a function, they're gone.
Yeah.
You take 12 donuts home, there's always that sort of, there's a guilty donut
yeah, you're
later
like,
in
I
the day.
gotta finish it. I can't let it go bad.
Wait till Sid is a little bit older, Steve, because you call her Sid?
Yeah.
Okay. I can beep it out if the world is not supposed to know her name.
No.
But when she gets a little older, she can help out with those things a little bit more, and you won't feel like you can bring home the dozen donuts, and you feel like this
Sounds
was a
perfect.
family effort.
Can I suggest
Did
a
it for the
nickname?
family. Yeah.
Sid Precious.
Sid Precious.
Ooh.
Yeah, not vicious.
I like
Sid
it.
Precious.
Wow. So the opposite of vicious.
Yeah, man.
I like where you're going with
Take that with you. Take
Done.
that with
Done.
you.
Precious. That feels like a good rap name to me. Like, you know what I mean?
Sid
Or like an
Precious.
indie film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or something.
About a rapper.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sid Precious.
Sid Precious. Say it, Steve.
Let's say it one more time. Sid Precious.
Do with it whatever you like.
Yeah, so last time we talked a little bit about toxic fandom and the ugly side of of just movies and people that are into movies, and that there might be this kind of culture war brewing between people who want to be nice and enjoy things and people who want to be shitty and shit on things.
Yeah.
And I think there's a movie that Steve and I have seen that you have not seen, but I think you could get into the broader question that rises from the movie about Fred Rogers, which is called Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Excuse me.
And I think that what this movie shows you is that even though niceness itself is uncomplicated, maintaining a nice life and being a nice person throughout a life is actually a very complicated thing. Yeah. It made me realize not just how much I think we need nice, but also it's that Tom Hanks thing of if we hear some shitty stuff about Fred Rogers,
it's done.
It's going to break my heart.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not just that niceness is the brand, it's that his niceness is like a philosophical thing, and it runs so much deeper than just anodyne, being sweet, or pretending nothing bothers you, or being Pollyanna. My general question to you, Ronald, would be, even though you haven't seen Won't You Be My Neighbor, do you think the world right now just kind of needs a little nice?
I think it's necessary. I think it's rare, but very necessary. I think there's something really cool about highlighting them now, because it feels like the show does the show air anymore?
It might air in reruns. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like on some of them on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I mean, the sad part is when if something didn't start off on DVD, it pretty much gets lost in the sauce now. And through these documentaries, through these highlights, and we get to reintroduce these people to an audience that would never have known about Mr. Rogers any other way. Besides their kids may be watching the spinoff about the puppets that's on PBS.
The Daniel Tiger.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to know where it comes from, and all comes from this kind-hearted sort of gesture to the world to kind of pay it forward with kindness.
And specifically to reach kids at an age before they've become cynical.
Yeah.
And tell them there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
You know? And I think that is so, personally, that was important to me. But ever since I came into adulthood, I've appreciated more and more just what that represented to me as a kid, that here was a guy who said, I like you just the way you are. Yeah. And that's so simple. And it can be you can make fun of it if you want to. And I think there was a decade or more where our tendency was ironic and cynical, and the jokes were all very meta, that we would have said, oh, this is cheesy, or this is simple, or this is whatever. But nowadays, when we see like real division in our country, and there's real hatred and there's real anger, and it seems like these two things will never meet in the middle, and you think like, man, what Fred Rogers was able to do was actually one of the most Jesus-like things a person I can think of has ever done, which is to maintain that pose, even if it's a pose, even if it's something he had to work at, of I'm listening, I'm here for you, you're fine. It doesn't mean don't change things for the better. It just means you shouldn't be walking around thinking you're alone and that your pain is yours and that no one can share your experience. Right. And that's so fucking deep. Yeah. That is so necessary.
Especially at a time where being a white dude was pretty much kind of incredible. I mean, there was no reason for him to reach outside of his beautiful life and just say, hey, you can be who you are, you can be a beautiful person. You don't have to make fun of people. Yeah. Adult things that I just never knew. I mean, like divorce and all that stuff, like him talking about things in these simple, tangible ways. It helped me a lot when I was a kid. I remember being like, man, I remember I helped somebody based on the way that he reacted to one of the sad puppets. Mm-hmm. I like talked to a friend that way, and it worked. I was like, oh my God, all I have to do is listen to this person? Mm-hmm. I like this.
What a novel idea.
It's a crazy idea. You just talk to them, hear them out, listen to them. It's like, man, Mr. Rogers was pretty important.
It's kind of a wild thing to watch now. Like, you know, I feel like I was kind of we were probably at our age.
Right.
Like kind of at the tail end of it, you know, and I caught a lot of it in reruns and stuff. Definitely something that still had an impact on me growing up, and, you know, I think is partially informed who I am now. But it is kind of jarring watching it now. Mm-hmm. You know, watching that footage and like watching him outside of an actual episode talking off camera or talking to people, and just seeing that like it just seemed like that's who he was. You know, like there was even though he may have like perfected how Mr. Rogers was looking on the show or what he was doing.
Yeah, and it was all very calculated in a way.
What his like song would lead him to do and what the character note was. Whatever. Right. But I mean, I think the through line that was kind of like more of a shake of my head watching it was like was more of the candid stuff, like watching him interact with the people working behind the scenes on the show, joking and, talking and having relationships with some of the actors, that went beyond the show and went on for years after the show ended. And I think it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of a shock to see, you mentioned Tom Hanks is like that guy now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a shocking thing to see a person who just seems like so honest and like forthcoming and like genuinely intending to do positive things, like no matter what the situation was.
Right.
It's just not a common thing anymore. Yeah. It's like more the exception to the rule rather than the rule. And like I feel like you're right. That's something that I feel like we need now. And I mean, I think that's why people are really loving this documentary, and it's performing really well, and the release that they've handled, how they've been rolling it out and festival circuits and everything has been really, really intentional and smart. And I love the fact that random people that I work with are aware of this documentary that like don't go to the movies a lot, and like it's tapped into something. And like if you had a connection to Mr. Rogers, to Fred Rogers, to the show, to Daniel Tiger, like you just mentioned, to the new show, like if you're watching it with your kids, it's just like a nice connection to something that should have always been and probably still is a positive influence on you, and can be on like the world, or the people in our country. But even if you didn't, I mean, I feel like there's something extremely accessible about the story of him and of his show and how important his show was. And like, I don't know, it's just so crazy to think of like how central he was to delivering conversation points to the public. Like when 9/11 happened and they have him come out and do
PBS was saying, we would love for you to come and record a few spots because America needs you.
Yeah, like you are needed right now. Like you are valued that much that you're not doing it anymore. But we really feel like our viewers and our country would love to hear you talk about this. Because it's such a balanced, metered, just... I don't know, like honest. Like some of the stuff he says is not even all that positive sometimes. You know what I mean? Like like you mentioned the divorce thing. There's a section in it when he's talking to parents about kids about parents getting divorces. It's not. There's no positive spin to it.
Yeah, the one where they're addressing the Kennedy assassination, the Bobby Kennedy assassination.
There's no positive spin. It's honest, and you're not like sugarcoating it, but you're presenting it. You're delivering it to kids in a manner that you believe they can handle it, and like. I don't know. There's something, I feel like as a new parent, there's something that I see that I feel like is at odds with that kind of care for children, where a lot of kids I feel like now are not. They're like, I don't even know what the proper term is. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but like this helicopter parenting and like they're like glass beings, and like you obviously don't want bad things to happen to your kids, and you want to tell them everything is going to be okay, and coddle them.
And that's not what he was
at all.
Yeah,
and that's what's shocking. When I saw this film at the Maryland Film Festival, as a new parent, I'm trying my best to figure out what my approach to being a parent means, and it's been informed by people like him and other things that have influenced me through my life, people in my life, but. That was a big takeaway for me, is walking out of that as a relatively new parent, and what I've witnessed of other people, my peers, in my that I've seen, and just this day and age that we live in now, like parents and how they parent, and how things are so different, and how that type of approach I think affects how people grow up and how they approach the world and what they expect from the world and their peers and things like that. It's just a wild conversation, and it's so simple to watch a movie like this, a documentary about a character in a show who's a man who was also that guy.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It's a phenomenal documentary.
I've heard some people criticize that it doesn't, they would like to see more of his life and more of his conflicts and more of his story, but I thought it was cool that it kind of tells the story of the show.
Yeah,
it picks up with how this show was created, and it almost leaves him alone when he was developing this idea of what his show would be. It was alongside and kind of under the same mentorship as these people who were writing these child psychology books that became huge for so long, that talk about treating kids not like little delicate flowers like what you were saying, but also not like they're just people.
Yeah,
there's something different. A child psychology.
There's a different approach.
At some point, that kid's going to be a grown up, is going to be out there in the world, and you hope they make decisions based on knowing they're loved and valued. all those things that Fred Rogers wanted kids to know is what every person walking around needs to know. I mean, there may have been more they could have done to kind of dirty up this impression of the guy. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that we didn't see. There's a moment in particular where he failed a friend.
Yeah.
And they make a real point out of how he redeemed himself from that to some extent. Fred Rogers seems to me like a guy who would hear new information and would think about it and would act on it.
Yeah.
And again, it's because he's got this underpinning that's like an educated psychological underpinning. That was the final piece of the pie to me that made me understand how this show came to be, is that there was an amazing intelligence behind it as far as what it was. And everything about it was so thought out.
Yeah.
From him coming in and changing into the sneakers and the sweater to the way that he would show you that he wasn't always the best at the arts and crafts.
Yeah.
There was a real humanity to him. I remember thinking he was my friend when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And nowadays, it's so weird. Like, if you heard a guy say, I've always had a wonderful relationship with children, you would go, all right, don't let that guy anywhere near a kid. But something about Fred Rogers, he sort of transcends that impression that you have. When I step back, I'm glad that it was the story of the show and the message and the meaning of his career. And it wasn't trying to start at day one and go through his whole life. The one thing you get in this movie that is powerful to me about his childhood, I won't necessarily spoil, but the poignancy just shoots up when you realize that maybe when he was a kid, he could have used a Fred Rogers around for him. So I guess we think you should see it, Ronald. Okay. You seem like a guy who could use a pick-me-up.
Oh, yeah, man. Especially from Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
I love that. I can't wait to see it.
I wonder if the general audience member that sees this movie knows the show or grew up with the show, or if I was a 20-year-old who saw this film and I was getting my first taste of Mr. Rogers, I wonder what that would be like, because I went into it with a lot of baggage and a lot of feelings about him already.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Do you think the movie, if you'd never seen one frame of it, do you think the movie would have much value, or do you think it does enough, or do you think it's more for people who might feel a tug of nostalgia at the notion of
it definitely is. That's the core, I think. Yeah. But again, like, I feel like there are people that are of age now that could go see this movie who know what Daniel Tiger is. Like this, there's a whole nother generation that's the show for that generation. Like, that's a very popular show as well. That is because of this. So I mean, I feel like, a parent could take a child who's a teenager now who knew Daniel Tiger and like see this documentary about this man that created what ultimately became your favorite show as a kid.
Well, Daniel Tiger gets a good chunk of the movie.
He does, yeah. And
I didn't know how much that was Fred.
Yeah,
like that was very powerful to me. The notion that he was acting out, like Daniel is so worried and insecure and everything, and people say that was Fred.
That was him, yeah.
Like his inner side, like that's his inner child coming out through Daniel.
Oh, wow.
When you know that and you see a few instances of it, you realize, again, Fred Rogers he needed it too. That really hit me. There's moments where you'll chuckle at the sort of low rent quality of the puppets and the show, but it's such a warm movie. It really felt like that rare thing where the laughs were all very, like, I didn't see anyone in the theater that I saw it with, and I saw it with a reasonably large crowd. Like, no one seemed to be laughing at the corniness of it. Which again, what was my big thing is can the world even handle the sincerity of someone like Fred Rogers?
That's a good question. They could use it for sure, but I don't know how well they would receive it. But you should definitely see it, Ronald.
Cool.
Yeah, it's worth checking out.
I'll definitely check it out.
So, I don't know, we're getting into this area where we could talk about some other movies that I think Steve and I have seen, but I don't know, Ronald, have you watched anything that's brought you any joy recently? Have you...
You watched Set It Up?
Set It Up?
The Netflix movie, the rom-com.
Oh, yes, Set It Up! With Lucy Liu and...
Taye
Diggs. I really enjoyed it.
Glenn Powell.
Well, talk to us a little bit about Set It Up.
Zoe Deutsch.
Well, Set It Up is a rom-com.
It is called Set It Up, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. I don't know any of the actors' names except for Lucy Liu.
I just said all three of them.
What's the name? What are the names?
Lucy Liu.
Just rewind the audio, Ronald.
Lucy Liu. And your girl, Drew. Lucy Liu, Taye Diggs, Glenn Powell.
Yep. Who is Durs Jr.
Zoe Deutsch. Daughter of Leah Thompson and Howard Deutsch.
I did not know that.
I did not know that.
And love her so much. She is
some
great in
chops,
this. I have also seen this film, and I fucking love this movie.
It was really very...
It is wild to me how much I enjoyed it.
This is just a rom-com? What is it? How is it different from your average rom-com?
So essentially, I mean, it's really not that different, but it's the execution of it.
Yeah.
I think... So it's two employees who are basically in the same building who have to deal with very crazy bosses. In one night, in a twist of fate, they meet each other and then they decide, after a while that they should hook their crazy bosses up with each other and see what happens, and then it kind of happens.
So they can be free of them.
Yeah,
because they're overworked, nuts. Underpaid, like egotistical, crazy,
really
power,
bad bosses.
Hungry, bosses. And it did just these two younger, working their asses off, and they come across one another, and they got this. They just hatch this plan to set them up so that they can have a break, and in the process, fall in love.
Yeah.
I just think that like what works so well for me is that it doesn't try to be anything more than it is.
Yeah.
Casting is great. Their chemistry is phenomenal. The Lucy Liu Tay Diggs stuff works really well. But the
you think it helps that they're just gorgeous?
It definitely helps.
Yeah. There are a couple twists too.
Yeah, a couple twists. But the chemistry with Glenn Powell, who I've grown to really be a big fan of, and I was super bummed out that he didn't get the Baby Goose role in Top Gun Maverick or whatever it's called.
Let's have a little sidebar about this. Do we want Top Gun 2? Like, are you interested? You're the biggest Tom Cruise guy.
You are.
I mean, yes, I'm interested.
I mean, I love him too, but
not just Tom Cruise, Top Gun.
Right.
Top
Maverick.
Yeah,
Maverick.
Maverick.
Is it called Maverick? Cruise. Is that what they're calling this movie?
I think it's called like Top Gun Maverick. I don't know. Rise of the Maverick.
Oh, all right.
So Miles
Rise
Teller,
of Baby Goose.
They've just cast Miles Teller officially as Goose's son.
Baby Goose.
So let's call it Baby Goose.
It kind of makes sense.
Gosling.
BG.
That's Gosling.
It kind of makes sense that Miles Teller is his son, though.
Miles Teller is Gosling in Top Gun, Maverick.
Boom. Got you back. La La Land. What?
I'd watch.
He was supposed to be in La La Land. Miles Teller.
Oh, it makes sense because it's Damien Chazelle.
Yeah. Excuse me?
Yeah. Him and Emma Thompson? No, Emma
Stone.
No.
There's another Emma.
No, Emma, Beauty and the Beast, Belle Emma.
What?
Watson.
Emma
Watson.
That was supposed to be the...
Miles Teller, Emma Watson were cast for La La Land.
I would have balled that movie up and thrown it in the fucking trash if that would have come up. I'm so glad it got scrapped.
Okay.
That's like an alternate version of a movie that's almost hard to picture. You know what I mean?
That would have been so weird.
I imagine they might have been good. Like,
I don't know, man. That's what
I think it would have been slapsticky.
I think I took the last one, Steve.
That's okay. I'm just getting some sauce.
But so yeah, Top Gun. Who's directing this?
Joseph. Was it Kaczynski?
Oh, okay.
Oblivion. Let's bring it back.
The co-inventor of science fiction.
Some would give him credit for inventing it.
Yeah. Okay. I know we talk about Tom Cruise inventing it, but he really just starred in Oblivion. Joseph Kaczynski directed it.
Yeah.
Right.
To say nothing of Tron Legacy, which he also directed, right?
Yes, he did. I don't know. Like, I like Miles Teller. I was just saying when we were talking about this before, it's like I just feel like he's one of those actors that, like, just he's becoming in that, like,
he's fetch.
He's
they're trying to make him
Taylor Kitsch, Charlie Hunnam, Miles Teller.
Yeah.
These like stars that are the stars of tomorrow. They're in movie after movie. Some good films, some not so good films. Barely any blockbusters, and they just keep getting like this is like the next try.
Yeah,
Miles Teller, Fantastic Four. Miles Teller, War Dogs. Miles Teller.
Well, arguably, Fantastic Four wasn't his fault. I didn't see.
I didn't say no. I'm not saying any of the movies were his fault,
yeah.
whether they were great or not. I'm just saying he is the name that is always on, or most of these like short lists for like casting whatever. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and I like him. I'm just saying that I feel like the Glenn Powell thing, like I really, really like Glenn Powell recently, and like I really liked him, and Everybody Wants Some. He was in that Ryan Murphy Scream Queens show on Fox that was kind of like super campy and fun. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was great and set it up, but Miles Teller I guess is the biggest name of the three that it was down to. It was him, Glenn Powell, and Nicholas Hoult. But I don't know. We'll see what's up with Miles Teller. But
yeah.
But back to set it up.
Yeah.
I just the chemistry of the two. They were in Everybody Wants Some together. I'm not sure if you saw that, the Linklater film.
I need to. I haven't seen it.
Okay, it's great. I really liked it.
Everything I heard made it sound like one of those Linklater films where it's like a slice of life.
Yeah, it's good. But I don't know. I just think that their chemistry is so great. It's so simple. It's not trying to be anything flashy. It's super modern, while still settling into the things that make a really solid rom-com that you don't really see very many of anymore. Right. And honestly, like I think it's one of the best Netflix original movies that they've put out. Period.
I agree with that.
Like I was looking through a bunch of other stuff, like trying to make sure I wanted to say that, but I mean, it's just so it's just so solid.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like the movie of the week. Last week, like everybody was tweeting about it, and because it dropped a couple weeks ago on Netflix. But I don't know if you're looking for just like a solid. If you love like the just old school 80s, 90s rom-coms, like whether it was Sleepless in Seattle kind of thing, or like even the 90s, like Can't Hardly Wait. It's like not the teen high school stuff, but just like that young love in the weirdest situations kind of thing. Like it just works. It's super cute, very funny, and it just knows when to end the movie. Like it was good. I really liked it. And I was recommending it to him, and I was happy that
I liked it.
Well, one of the things you've been able to watch, and you were gladly...
I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you liked it.
And I liked it. It wasn't a straightforward thing, and it kind of had a little bit of a twist in the end.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well,
it's on Netflix now.
I was about to say, I've been curious about a lot of stuff that's hit Netflix recently, and I think you've seen a couple things that I'm curious about. Ibiza or Ibiza? Ibiza. Well,
not a fan.
They pronounce it funny over there in Spain.
Do
Don't
they?
They say Ibiza.
You said not. You said not a fan?
Not a fan.
Any quick thoughts on why not a fan? What was it that didn't work, or?
Just like the tone was kind of odd to me. Like it tried to be like kind of raunchy at times and kind of a little darker.
I saw
at
that
times.
too.
It's Gillian Jacobs.
Yeah.
I totally
Vanessa
forgot that
Bayer.
I saw that. It was a very forgettable movie.
Yeah.
It was trying to be
Obviously.
like a combination of girls trip and what was the other one? Bridesmaids. It was like
Weird thing.
Kinda
Or that
Ian
Scarlett Johansson one. Like
yes. Okay. So those.
yeah. Where they accidentally kill the stripper. Not that there's like somebody getting killed in this, but like
No.
I was thinking of the other one.
Tone wise, it's
Bachelorette with that's what I was thinking of was Bachelorette.
It's like it's going for this like it's funny, but it's kind of like like gritty a little bit. Like
yeah. So that's
I don't know. It's weird.
The movie was bad because it just had these set pieces where they just sat in a place or ran around a place and just said the raunchiest thing they could possibly ever
That's
think
what
of.
I mean. Yeah, like
It was like the story wasn't that good. There was like I don't know. I kind of like the idea of like.
Doesn't that feel like boilerplate now when they put out one of these movies and they stick in the gross out jokes? Like it feels like this is a requirement that almost feels to me kind of juvenile.
Yeah.
And I love juvenile humor, but to me, I feel like it's become an assumed thing in this type of movie.
Totally.
It specifically felt like a man writing jokes for a woman. Like, oh, this is how a raunchy woman would talk. Hey, you gotta suck his dick. It's like those kind of jokes. It was like, that's not funny. Just the way that, what's her name? I listened to her podcast. I can't remember her name. Phoebe Robinson.
Oh yeah.
Phoebe Robinson was kind of that person. She was like the Tiffany Haddish of that. So whenever a scene would happen, she'd come in with the raunchy joke that was raunchier than all their other jokes, and it just never hit. And it's not that she was bad. It's just the script was kind of weird. It felt a little like
Written by a woman, directed by a man.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Just wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Those jokes didn't hit like I thought they did. I mean, because I love Phoebe Robinson. She's a great comedian, like a real comedian, like a touring comedian. And I was like, all right, two dope queens.
Are you suggesting there are some actors who call themselves stand-up comedians that probably sell out their tours, but they're not real comedians, Ronald?
Absolutely. I can think of a director that does that.
Oh, you're talking about
the
guy who we're going easy
Please
on
don't say it because I'd love to be in a movie of this.
Oh, wait, maybe it's not the guy I'm thinking of.
Please don't say it because I'd love to be in a movie of this.
Kevin Smith? Judd Apatow. Oh, okay.
No, I don't think he's a bad comedian.
No,
I'm just saying,
I know what you're saying.
For what you're saying. He plopped himself in, and now he's
I was
like,
thinking you were saying Kevin Smith because of those Evening with Kevin Smith things. But
the fact that he kind of plopped himself in after like 30 years, and now he can like sell out any venue is strange, man. And he's like,
it's the name.
Yeah. Okay, you know who's the ultimate?
Seriously?
You know who's the ultimate mediocre at best stand-up comic that is doing great? It's Ricky Gervais.
You don't like Ricky Gervais?
Oh, I think he sucks, man.
You know why?
Shit.
You know why I kind of feel like you do. God, I like him.
Half his special is him reacting to people tweeting at him about him being too offensive.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that like makes bad jokes and then says that people are offended. Do you know what I mean? Like the problem is that he's not that funny as far as I'm concerned, or that he's telling jokes that feel like hacky stand-up comic jokes that were maybe 10 years old, or that like feel overly written. And I love The Office. I love Extras. I love sort of what he represented to me for a while. I listened to those podcasts with him and Stephen
I love those.
And Carl Pilkington. So it's in my heart that Ricky Gervais can do something brilliant. Yeah. I just think the stand-up comedy is like, it's the most self-congratulatory.
It is very self-congratulatory.
And he goes out there and he just seems like he's so high on himself that it just loses a lot of the whatever it is that makes me relate to a comedian or makes me get into a comedian is feeling like I'm seeing something kind of unvarnished. And I feel like everything he does is sort of practiced and rehearsed and I don't know. He's definitely got an audience out there that's going to eat up whatever he does. But he seems to me like the ultimate guy who hasn't really paid his dues, but is in his mind, he's like one of the world's most successful stand-up comics.
You know who is the better version of that in real life? Like David Letterman and Seinfeld. And by that I mean like there's a tone to that comedy that's like, I'm smarter than you.
Yeah.
But it's not that he thinks that he's smarter than you. He just doesn't like people. Jerry Seinfeld doesn't like people in general. Like there's like a thing to him. Like
he's got like a shell, right?
That's like, he likes people.
Developed
his friends
to protect him from people.
Yeah, his friends he likes, but like general public. You see when Kesha tried to pug him? Like that's real life. What he's trying to replicate on stage. Mm-hmm. That whole like, I don't know.
Yeah, because Kesha was like, Jerry Seinfeld, he's an icon, I'm going to hug him. And he's like,
no.
Get this dirty girl off of me.
And there's something, I don't know, I love that, man. So Seinfeld is that version of a person that I
Right, and he's another guy whose
replicate.
Everything is very written. And he's going to have an audience that's going to go out and eat it up. But Seinfeld is also the ultimate example of a guy who paid his dues with material and came up from nothing with the strength of his observational humor that is so hackneyed now that it's like he almost can't even do his own style because so many people ran with that idea
mimicked.
Of, do you ever notice? You know, and I'm not, it sounds like I'm knocking him.
No,
he was one of my favorite comics for so long, and I still think he's a very smart, funny guy.
If you want to see the differences between the two of them, watch that Talking Funny. That's when you realize how different all of.
It was Louis C.K., Seinfeld, Chris Rock, and Gervais, and you can tell that nobody in that room is quite sure why Ricky Gervais is like
so mean.
Running the conversation at certain points.
What is this called?
Talking Funny. It's
a podcast.
It's a roundtable discussion.
It was like an HBO roundtable discussion with these iconic comedians. And
I think you
Chris
would
Rock,
love it.
Seinfeld, Louis C.K., and Ricky Gervais, and you can tell there's just this general feeling that
there's an approach to his joke telling that it becomes very apparent that they don't feel like that. Like they're just like, no, we're not smarter than the audience. Yeah, it's just different. Mm-hmm. It's not what you're saying at all. Yeah. Okay. But it's cool. But I like Ricky Gervais in it. It's a really good. Talking Funny.
I know. I just said his stand-up sucks, which was strong words.
I wasn't expecting that.
I was surprised to hear that come out of my mouth. But
I'm glad you said it though.
I do feel that way because I love him.
You're in a safe space,
and I can't stand the stand-up. You know,
I kind of feel similarly, and then I realized that. Okay, last thing I'm gonna say because I really like him. I feel like I've watched the same special a couple times.
Yeah.
And I don't always feel like that with every comic. I don't feel like that with Bill Burr. I don't feel like that with...
Dave Chappelle puts out 2 hours on the same day, and they're not the same.
I watched Dave Chappelle do a brand new hour that is totally separate from everything that I've heard on all those Netflix specials.
How was that? Talk to us about Dave Chappelle's show. You think he's a better stand-up than Ricky Gervais?
Yes. Yes, this one's about like...
Hot take.
Yeah, this new set of stuff is like about protecting himself and gun law, and it's something totally different. But he also addresses the backlash from the last special. Yeah. It was fucking good.
And he's someone, if he got up there and talked about the reaction to his last special, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais talking about people being offended by his jokes at the Golden Globes or whatever. Yeah. It's just like nobody really cares about that shit, do they? I mean, I know they must because he's super successful.
Yeah.
But Ricky Gervais doesn't need my help. So
yeah.
But I still think The Original Office is one of the most brilliant and completely formed things anyone's ever made.
It's so good.
So he's got
got
a place in my heart no matter what he does, I think.
It's the bones, for real, the bones of the American show. I mean, like, it's different, very different, but the absurdity of it is borrowed. The basis of all of the jokes in the entire show is the original UK one. That's definitely like very original.
Speaking about the British Office, here's a great segue. I think you saw another movie on Netflix that I was curious about, Cargo, starring
Cargo.
Martin Freeman.
Yeah.
Really cool concept.
And have you seen the short that it was based on?
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
There was I feel like we talked about. There was a short like 4 years ago.
Okay.
About the father carrying the baby through the desert during like a zombie apocalypse, and he's bit, but he's like trying to get her to like some place to. This
feels very familiar. That's what the movie's about.
Yeah, that's the movie.
Oh, geez. Let me add this to the... That sounds crazy.
Yeah, so it's based on a short that came out a few years back. Like, basically, the context is, in the short, again, he's basically transporting this child on, like, a carrier on his back. Mm-hmm. He's been infected or bitten or whatever, and trying to get her to somebody who has survived.
Gotcha.
Before he turns.
And ostensibly becomes a danger to the baby,
exactly.
Right?
And that's basically the premise of the movie. I mean, the movie builds it out.
That's cool material for him. He doesn't usually do stuff like that. But you know what? I love him.
Me too. He's also been in this movie this year, apparently that's great, called Ghost Stories. I haven't seen yet. We've been trying to find it because it was apparently supposed to come out on video on demand, but we can't find it.
No, he's a really interesting actor. So how does he handle the sort of horror mixed with grimness that Cargo?
He's great.
Does it trade on that likability that we have, this mundaneness and the kind of normalcy he seems to represent from other things? Does it kind of feel like a twisted version of character he's played before, or is it a whole new thing?
I think it's a whole new thing. I mean, because he's kind of like he kind of has a pretty decent. What's cool about like usually you're like, how are you building that concept out to a feature length? Like that short is really great actually. I'd recommend seeking it out. I can't remember if it's also called Cargo or something else, but you know, seeing the desperation that a father would have to try to save their children or their child, knowing that they could become a threat to them. But I think it's cool because it takes place in Australia, like in the outback, and kind of crossing paths with how this outbreak has affected the native people there, and like what their ways of life and how it played into how they're dealing with this zombie / epidemic that's happened. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. He goes through like a really interesting character arc, and all kinds of different phases of trust of other people, and not just trust in a general sense, but trust for possibly like caring for my child. Right. There's like a weird level up of how much you must trust somebody, when you're not going to be there to filter whatever's happening to protect your child. You know what I mean? Especially when you're on a timetable that you're basically dying. Mm-hmm. You're becoming the threat. And
I like when movies have a built-in, like the stakes are part of the premise like that. That the ticking clock is, for this character, it's it. That's it. All he can do is accomplish this one thing, and that's it. And I think that, again, that's a cool concept. And
it's the kind of thing, like some of the stuff's a little kind of hits some of the classic tropes of like crossing people that have been so affected and tainted by what's happening outside that they basically become a different kind of monster, not of the zombie or like epidemic scale, but like of a human.
Someone should do like a long-running TV show about how people are the real monsters in a zombie apocalypse.
It's weird, It could maybe work for maybe 10 seasons, maybe 6 before it goes off.
It could be really interesting for a couple of episodes and then run for 10 seasons.
It could go either way. But it's just interesting though, because I think that characterization that we usually see of him, I think it does play into that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's kind of cool to see him kind of like take a little bit of a darker lead, only because you're in the context of a story where he's going to die, and that he could possibly become a threat. You're hoping that's not the case, but just like the courage and like the bravery and like I don't know, there's just so much on display of the mindset of someone who you're like on a clock now. You're done. Which that's like a crazy fucking premise for anything.
Yes.
To be like, I have my kid strapped to my back. I have it strapped to my back so that I possibly can't get to her in case I turn in transit. Mm-hmm. Like maybe the brain functions of a zombie or whatever they are wouldn't be able to figure out how to get the baby out or something weird. Yeah. Like there's that thought process you can see him going through in the movie. And
is
it's
it pretty
really
standard
cool.
zombie rules?
No, it's not. And actually, to be honest with you, that's the only thing I don't know that I fully got what happened, because it's definitely more of like a sickness zombie thing happening. Oh. Because they slowly turn and like this like kind of like goop, like I don't know what the proper like this like goopy like they're all of their like eyes and mouths kind of get sort of get like covered by like this like pasty, sticky stuff. Like, I don't even understand. I that's the only thing I can say is unless I missed it, but like there's something I didn't get about like what actually is happening besides it's transmitted by a bite or it was airborne at one point. They mentioned I think in the movie, but it's definitely playing more on the infection epidemic scale thing that's turning them into these like flesh eating. There's a really cool angle like where they bury their heads in the sand to like to stay alive when they haven't fed. There's some really cool shit happening with about the rules of it.
That's what I was wondering about, was like, because that's a big question with any zombie thing or vampire thing or whatever you're going to do, is like, are you going to fall back on these are the rules we all know and now we're up and running, or do you have your own version of it, you know?
I would say it's possible that I missed it. I mean, admittedly, like I was watching it like, you know, not like glued to the screen like at my house. I was watching it somewhere else, but I liked it. I thought it was really good. I really do agree. I agree. I really like him a lot, and I enjoy most.
He seems smart, and he makes smart choices.
I see him in, absolutely.
Is Keegan-Michael Key in it?
No.
I see this list.
I don't really know that I recognize anybody else in the movie.
Oh, okay.
It's really him.
Gotcha.
But definitely, I mean, I'd recommend it. It's on Netflix. I went on a tear. I was like, set it up, Ibiza and Cargo. I watched them all in like a day. I like Set It Up the most, I think, only because it just surprised me the most. Like I didn't know anything about it, but Cargo was solid. Definitely worth checking out for sure.
I gotta see it.
I'll check it out.
We gotta find Ghost Stories. I've heard that's really
good.
Good.
Is it out? That's
what I'm saying. Like it was supposed to apparently come out on like VOD in like April or early May.
Yeah. And
it's like nowhere to be found. But I don't know if it's got pushed
the date back.
Did it not hit a festival and get some good reviews?
It did.
Or something?
It did. Yeah. I that's what got me onto it. I was reading a bunch of festival reviews, and so I don't know. I don't know what happened to that movie, or if it's coming out. Maybe it got pushed back or something.
I mean, sometimes getting pushed back is a mark of they realize they have something.
Yeah,
you know?
Maybe like they're gonna release it like in the fall or something around like Halloween or something maybe. But I'm a fan. Speaking
of horror or fall films, have you heard that Suspiria, the remake? There was a story today that said that the director showed it to Tarantino and apparently he was reduced to tears by it.
I saw that.
What does that even mean?
That's a weird story and it's a weird headline, but I have to say I'm getting kind of psyched about this Suspiria remake. And I'm not one who thinks of the first one as this unassailable classic that you shouldn't touch. I think it's got some cool, weird elements that make it really special. I think the soundtrack by Goblin is one of the reasons why people love Suspiria. I think Dario Argento has a certain visual style that is very powerful. And I think there's a few moments in it that are just weird and unsettling on this primal level. But it's not one of my horror films. So I'm open to I mean, you know, we've talked about remakes. A good take is a good take. But I thought that looks pretty good. It looks like they're doing something kind of interesting with the kind of movie that it is. It looks like it's going to hurt. And it's actually going to be... Like the way that Hereditary, which I've seen, I don't think either one of you guys have seen it. You know the way that trailer sells like a rougher kind of tone? It just feels like they're saying something awful is going to happen in this world.
And then it doesn't happen?
No. Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, no. Do you know do you know about Hereditary? There's a couple...
No, I haven't seen it.
There's a couple big oh shit moments in that where you just realize what might set it apart from... And I love The Witch... But there's those indie movies that come out that are
That's
hard.
What I was joking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people say those movies don't have the juice, and I think Hereditary, it hits all those, it ticks all those art house boxes, but it also has the juice. It's got the horror stuff that you want.
Cool.
And to me, Suspiria looks like it's going in that direction. Do you know what I'm saying? Don't you think from watching that you're like, people are going to get hurt in this fucking movie?
Everything I've read about it, so apparently they screened it for an audience, and people started walking out because it was so gruesome. That makes me feel like I don't normally feel like I want to see gore. I'm not like a torture porn dude.
No.
But there's something about the setting. Watching the original Suspiria, you know, Suspiria is one of those movies that the more I think about it, the more I liked it. I mean, I didn't hate it. Was
I like it. It's just never like
the soundtrack is shrill and weird, and I get why people like the soundtrack.
Well, it contributes to the mood. It's very unsettling.
It's very unsettling. This is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. And then to think that that concept, that wildness is kind of going to be shaved down to all the gruesome parts, and I keep it, and the music's just as equally as weird, and I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I have no interest in it.
Oh, really?
I mean, I will see it because I
think you're gonna love it when it comes out.
I'm not a fan of the original one. It's definitely one of those classics that like
it gets handed to you on a platter.
So Steve just put it in classic.
Quotes, yeah.
That's in an insulting way.
I would almost probably say I feel like the music, the score of that film is more unsettling than the movie was to me. I also came. It's one of those situations where I came to it like literally 8 years ago, 10 years ago was the first time I ever saw it.
Oh, okay.
So like it wasn't anything that I had that hit me when I would have had more of an impression on me.
Yeah.
But like it was one of those things where the reputation was like through the roof, and it just wasn't for me.
Right. I mean, as much as I enjoyed it, I have that feeling whenever these movies get handed down to you and they get pointed out, and it's like, this is a classic, this is great, and if you know the genre and you know what you like about it, that can be almost like. Yeah. And I'm not saying you're being this way, but it's almost like an invitation to say like, all right, show me something, Denny. You're so great, and you already have your horror movies that you love. You know what I mean? It's it's almost like it's impossible to see it outside of that hype.
Don't mind me while I lick the shell.
You can lick these muscle shells. You know that Squeeze song, "Pulling Muscles from a Shell"?
Yeah.
That's our theme tonight.
There it is. I am.
I wanted to mention this, a movie that I've seen that I know neither of you have seen, but I think this is such an us movie that you guys need to see it so we can talk about it. I saw Sicario, Day of the Soldado.
I was so close to seeing that movie last weekend. I'm so pissed I didn't see it.
I mean, it's pretty cool. It's pretty good.
Really?
Like, you know, we were talking about how from the trailer, it seemed like it almost seems like a Logan ripoff. Yeah. That it was like the assassin is warming up to a kid.
Yeah.
That is sort of what happens, but it's also not at all what happens. And the one thing this movie has, too, going for it, is that feeling in the first Sicario. You remember how the first Sicario, we talked about how using Emily Blunt as kind of an over-the-shoulder character, you saw her go deeper and deeper into this dark world where she had no purchase, she had no control, and it was all about her realizing, not just in over my head, but like this world that was being revealed to her kind of darkened everything she knew. This movie is like that without that character.
Oh, wow.
Like, you don't have anybody who doesn't know how dark it is. You don't have anybody that wouldn't kill you. Right, you don't have anybody that's not ready to, that's not ready to do what it takes.
Okay.
It makes it a really interesting ride. You don't often see movies that end kind of this ambivalently towards the characters, the morality. I do worry a little bit that this movie feels like a middle part in a trilogy, and they're setting up a part 3. I'm pretty sure there's another one coming. Yeah. Well, it feels a little bit like that. But the main thing you get from this is if you like that sleazy Josh Brolin that is in the first Sicario,
give it.
Oh, you get a major dose of that character in this. The guy is so morally, he's not even on the moral spectrum. Yeah. He's outside of it.
Still wearing flip-flops?
And smacking gum. And then Benicio. Holy shit. I mean, I love him already.
He's not in enough movies, man.
This is like the Benicio movie, the way one of those old classic Clint Eastwood movies is an Eastwood movie.
Oh,
it's like it threatens to overturn the appeal of the first one if the character's too much of a superhero or too much of a badass. And what this movie does really beautifully is it does let you take pleasure in what a badass he is, but it does not end there. Like that's not where it's going.
Gotcha.
Is you ending the movie going, oh man, that guy, he got out without a scratch. It's like there's a point in the third act where your stomach starts to drop and you're like, oh shit, this is the same dark world. This is the same world in the first Sicario where she arrives in Mexico and she sees someone hanging off the bridge. Yeah. It's that
and bodies in the wall.
Like,
man.
It can turn so bad, if you're out amongst these people.
I can't wait to see this movie.
I don't want to oversell it, but I know you guys liked the first one.
No,
the only thing that was missing a little bit from this movie, and I got over it pretty quick, was Roger Deakins and Denis Villeneuve. It doesn't quite have that utter cohesion. But I think whoever shot this and the director, they're existing in the style of the first movie. So it's almost like whatever the style book was for that first movie, this one kind of adopts it. It's got some amazing visuals in it. It's got that same score, that like... It's like a horror movie score. Yeah. And it's almost like the score they use in a horror trailer. It's this repeated cello note that goes like... but it's over these helicopter shots. And it's just... I mean, there's real helicopters, real cars, real stunts, squibs. I think that this movie is
Any droid shot... Am I using drone shots like the last one?
It's got a lot of aerial shots. But it makes
that made me uncomfortable with how good it was. Yeah. It was so smooth from the point where they got past the toll
to
the town.
Wow, that scene is amazing.
that movie, that's like one of the only movies that I was like, you watch a movie that's, I don't know, man, the darkness doesn't seem to be there for a lot of these movies. It's one of those movies
they talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's not there.
It's not there.
This movie is like, they don't even have to do more than kind of hint at it, and it's there.
Sicario made me feel like I could not survive in this world.
Absolutely.
And I didn't feel like that. I don't feel like that about many. I'm like, oh, I could hide, right?
Well, like Day of the Soldado is literally like that, except you look around and there's nobody who is not part of this world.
I've heard good things from a few people who I value their opinion. You obviously one of them, so that's
cool.
I'm glad to know.
I'm excited about that.
I mean, I thought I was going to have some people like, there's been 3 people that have told me that they went and they like really liked it. And I was worried, like the conversation that we had prior about my concern with it.
No, the trailer sells a much more mundane.
That's what
it looked like. The Professional to me.
It's yes.
I felt like it looked like the Den of Thieves sequence.
Which would be cool. Okay, well, we went down. I said it looked like Logan. He said it looked like The Professional. You said Den of Thieves, but it's like at best, we're used to movies like being kind of like that. And this
it just seemed like the trailer was dumbing it down to like that more of an action crime thing instead of the substance that Sicario really had. Which
you totally get the feel that like the Secretary of Defense was in on this, and he washes his hands midway through. You totally get the feel that like we want to secretly start a war with the drug cartel so that America can benefit in this way. And then that doesn't quite go the way they planned, but their plan is so evil from the get-go. Yeah, that like that moment in the trailer that really does feel kind of cheesy. In the movie, it feels earned, where Josh Brolin says, what is it? You're going to start a war? And he says, with who? And he says, everybody. In the movie, that moment feels like, oh man, this is about to get so ugly. But again, back to Benicio. I mean, so good. So good. Yes.
Pumped. That's exciting.
Super pumped.
Cool. All right. I'm glad you liked it. I'm probably going to see it in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I guess other than that, what looks good? What's on the horizon that anyone's really excited about? We've kind of worked through some of these movies that we were anticipating. Right? Yes.
Halloween trailer looks great.
Just dropped a trailer for Better Call Saul season 4. That looks fucking great.
I didn't see that yet. I saw the poster with the mask.
The mask, yeah.
I did not see the trailer yet. I'm looking forward to it.
You guys are caught up on that show.
Yes.
Right? I can't wait to see the fallout of the end of last season. It's going to be so ugly.
So do you think that some of the characters from Breaking Bad are going to show up in this one?
I'm more tantalized by.
I mean, not that that's like the selling point.
I don't want them to overestimate how much they need to connect to Breaking Bad,
right?
Because I think they've carved out a really cool moral and storytelling space. But I'm really tantalized by seeing Saul after the events of Breaking Bad. Yeah. I'm really tantalized by seeing somebody from Breaking Bad come into that world. I want to see Jesse show up at the Cinnabon, or I want to see even Kim from Better Call Saul show up in that world. So I'm more interested in that. If seeing like a flashback where they're trying to make Aaron Paul look 10 years younger than he is, or 20 years younger than he is, I'm just not interested. Like, I feel like that's too prequely if they connect the dots too much. But I'm fine with like, okay, let's think of who's left at the end of Breaking Bad. Imagine that coming into that Nebraska plot line.
If they do that.
Because I would love it if part of this show is seeing how Gene gets his mojo back. Seeing how, unlike Walter White, Jimmy McGill / Saul Goodman can be redeemed. There's a heart there.
Right.
So yeah.
Ghost Stories comes out July 17th on iTunes.
Oh shit. Cool. So like next week.
Yeah.
Oh cool. So we can talk about it.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, we definitely was a couple other trailers we talked about. I don't remember what they were though.
Yeah.
I think that Widows trailer is really good.
Oh yeah, Widows.
That looks awesome.
Great cast and great concept.
Yeah. Amazing cast.
And you just know Steve McQueen is not going to dick around.
It looks like it's going to be really nuts. Like it looks like we're going to be seeing some actors that we're not doing some things we weren't expecting.
It's like if everybody in Heat got knocked off. And like, what would Ashley Judd and who was oh god, who else is it now? I can't blank out. Yeah. I always think of Ashley Judd from Heat, Val Kilmer's girlfriend.
Right.
Like, what did they talk about? That's this movie, but directed by Steve McQueen. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
And you have Viola Davis leading the movie. I'm like,
man,
sold. Goddamn sold.
No, she's so good.
She is. She looks like she has this energy about her, which it feels like she could just knock anybody out. I don't know what it is about her. Like, she's like an intense woman. Looks good.
So yeah, that's what looks good. And I think that's our episode.
I think next week we finally get to see Mission Impossible Fallout.
Oh, that's right.
Well, the week after this will be coming out. It'll be coming out in theaters. So
That's exciting, man.
can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah, next time we talk, we'll probably talk about that.
Henry
we'll talk
Cavill reloading his biceps. That's
Henry Cavill punching people in the face.
Yeah, he has to cock his arms, though. He's got to power them.
He's got cocks in his arms. What? Is what I just heard you say.
He's got arm cocks. But don't you think in the movie, when he does that, there should be like a little... like a powering up noise.
That would be really cool.
And like a little light that, goes that lights up.
He's gotta wait for it to charge before he can go.
That's how Bane was. In the, he pressed the button like.
Well, I'm intrigued by that Henry Cavill character in Fallout because the notion of Ethan Hunt having a like a CIA assassin who's not going to leave him alone on his ass, that feels like a movie,
Oh, for sure.
But I'm curious, who do you think dies in Fallout? It seems obvious that it seems like the wife is going bye-bye.
Michelle Monaghan.
Which is sort of I'm not a big fan of that. I know you liked Upgrade more than I did, but Upgrade had that too, where the wife exists just to be the fodder.
Simon Pegg's still alive.
What is it called?
Fridging.
The fridging, yeah.
It's a trite choice, but I understand the notion of anybody in Ethan Hunt's life is technically fodder for that moment where he says he's got no one. So do you think Simon Pegg makes it out of this movie?
I was going to say that.
I think he's going to die. I think he's going to super
Pegg or Rams. It's one of the two.
Don't kill.
It's either Simon or Ving.
Yeah.
Oh, don't kill Simon Pegg. He's the heart of these movies. But they know that. They know they can make me hurt. They know they can make me hurt.
They got something good with these movies, man. Mm-hmm. That's like my movie of the summer. I can't wait.
I enjoy those movies, man. Like more than...
I rewatched 3, 4, and 5 over the past couple weeks.
Good.
Man, they are so good.
Yeah.
Like I like the first one a lot. The second
a series
one
that got better. What does that?
No, it is. Like it went like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
Like it literally, like they corrected it. The course correction.
Who was the villain in 3?
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
J.J. Abrams directed it.
The fact that he was a villain and spoke in his normal...
He is phenomenal in that movie.
It's scary.
Mm-hmm. He's great.
That's when I really... I didn't even know villains did that.
Probably the best villain in the whole series.
Yeah, that smugness and that.
Yeah, and just the way he talked to Tom Cruise, like in the movie, like so mild and metered at one point, and then just like he would snap and like, I'm gonna find everybody that you love, and like I'm gonna kill. Like that promise he makes him in the beginning of the movie, like it just man, and like the not to go to Mission Impossible, the scene when Ethan Hunt like has when they drug him and he puts the Philip Seymour Hoffman mask on in the bathroom when they're kidnapping him, that whole scene is so good. Watching Tom Cruise like become Philip Seymour Hoffman with his mask, and then Philip Seymour Hoffman is playing how he thinks Ethan Hunt would play the villain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's still Philip Seymour Hoffman.
That's really cool.
Like they're very similar, but they're just like little weird differences because it's like supposed to be Ethan doing it.
No, I love that.
It's so good.
I love that when it's got layers like that.
And in that scene,
it's like he's not just doing himself; he's doing Tom Cruise doing himself.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And like when he circles back in that scene to Maggie Q's character, and like how he's acting like he's walking into her again.
Yeah.
All the while it's Ethan. Like, it's just so good, man. Like, I don't know that that's my favorite one, but it just, you could just feel the franchise correcting itself in that in the third one, in that bridge scene where that missile comes in and like blows Tom Cruise into the side of the car while he's running. Man, these movies are phenomenal.
Good movies, man.
And in case you're wondering, my word of the day is phenomenal.
Yes.
Children out there, phenomenal.
Yes.
Muscles, phenomenal.
Yes.
Muscles,
Benicio, phenomenal. Mission Impossible, phenomenal.
No.
There it is.
Cool.
That's it, man. That's the end of this epic,
Yeah, I feel like we caught
phenomenal
up.
Ketchup episode.
We didn't even talk about Incredibles 2.
Didn't do it.
We didn't even have time for that blockbuster.
Didn't even do it.
That's how
Couldn't
stacked
have
we
time. We're stacked.
Well, thanks for listening, guys.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.
Where can they find the podcast, Ronald?
Everywhere. iTunes.
So you're saying like at the Apple Store?
Yeah.
Like
Spotify.
at McDonald's?
Yeah. McDonald's.
It's anywhere.
Yeah. Don't be a dickhead. Look for it everywhere.
You can go to Neopole Smokery.
Don't look for it everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's there.
We're everywhere.
We're in the Movie Pass app.
Don't be a dickhead and say, "Oh, I can't find it." You're lying to yourself.
7-Eleven, we're there.
You can Google it.
Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts.
Tune in.
Google Play.
The radio one.
The radio one. iHeartRadio.
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 So everywhere.
Yep.
We
there.
cannot miss us.
If you find us any of those places, or you subscribe to us already in those places, please leave a review.
Please.
Spread the word.
Anything, or if you could share, that little like, that little universal icon. It's like a little box, and it's got the arrow pointing up.
Yeah.
It's like that like share icon in most of the apps.
Which is such a strange icon.
Yeah, it's like take it out of the box and give it to the world. Is what I picture that as. Like, do that for us to your favorite social media site. Yeah. Tell people about Movie Schmovie. It would be appreciated. And maybe if you do it in time, they could come back and listen to episode 220 in a couple weeks. As always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.